अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रीमते रामानुजाय नमः। जय श्रीमन्नारायण. Hi all. I've been practicing yoga for many years now, and recently I started practicing mudras. And as a part of it, there was an inquisitiveness to understand how the thumb is connected to the fire element or the Manipura chakra, how the index finger is connected to the air element, and so on and on. So I wanted to understand this connectivity. So I started understanding, reading various stuff related to the yogic texts, and then also the physical structure of the body, the various systems. Like, is this connectivity through the nervous system, or is this connectivity through the nadis that we talk about, the Panchakosha theory that's there? And in that process, I also studied the medical terminologies, like how the action impulses are transmitted through the electrical signals, electrochemical signals from the brain to the organs of action, and similarly how they are received by the brain from the organs of perception, right? And that's where I then stumbled upon the Western philosophy, where they say that all a person is nothing but just these electrical impulses and this physical body. Once there is death, basically there is nothing called as soul and other things. That is their philosophy, right? It is just like if you have a computer, you turn it on, it's working. You turn it off, it's gone. It's over, right? So I wanted to understand or counter it, or from what we have learned from our childhood, which is through our scriptures, our Vedas, our yoga texts and other things. But the thing here is that it is very difficult to prove anything here. We are not here to prove. There are many people who are trying to prove that this is correct, because this is something that has to be experienced. It is something to at least a person of my intellect. In this bound state, it is difficult to understand. So just because you cannot experience it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So then, okay, so there was this unanswered question about the connectivity between the thumb and the Manipura chakra. So I then wanted to understand, okay, initially I thought, is prana just the electrical circuits, right? That is basically the electrical signals passing through the neuron cell firing, right? Is it just that? Is it prana? Is it just that, right? I initially thought it is just that, because my next query was, what is prana, right? I mean, first of all, if you were to understand the connectivities, then you need to understand the thing that is connecting or moving, right? Through these connectivities or nadis or whatever you call it, right? So in trying to understand prana, I thought, is it this electrical circuit only, that from the brain to the various through the nervous system, right? Through the neuron action response. But then I then realized that in yoga we talk about the Panchakosha theory. That is, we are made up of 5 layers: the Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. Similarly, in our scriptures too, we talk about these various layers. Then I thought to myself that prana cannot be just something that is physical, or something that is just an electrical energy or an electrical impulse. These are all at the physical level only, right? If we are saying that there is something beyond this, then prana has to be something beyond this. So that's when I started from prana. So first I wanted to, this topic will cover about prana, and then it will also cover about my understanding of prana, rather, right, from the little research I have done. And it will also cover about the sukshma sharira, or the subtle body, which starts from the pranamaya kosha, right? So I am not going to go into detail into what are these koshas. I assume that people who are listening to this have that basic knowledge, because otherwise it will become a long lecture. So first let's talk about the subtle body. The subtle body, or the sukshma sharira, is basically beyond this physical body. Once the physical body goes away, it is told that the person moves with the subtle body. Basically the soul, when I say person, right, the soul is entrapped in the subtle body, and it goes along with the subtle body, finding another body which is obtained based on the karma. Even when we are living, it is told that subtle body can be experienced in dreams. In dreams, for example, we are traveling to different worlds, different places that we have not seen perhaps earlier. Maybe we were there in those places in our earlier lives, etc., etc. But the subtle body is capable of moving, right? There is no physicality to it, but it can experience. There is a movement there, right? And there is an experience there, and there is a storage of information there, thoughts there, right? And there is a transmission of that information when you wake up, right? So I saw this dream. So in some philosophies, it is told that dream is not reality; it's an illusion. So everything is an illusion. But Ramanuja Siddhanta, in the Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta, it is told that dream is true, everything is true. There is no like Vyavaharika and Paramarthika things, everything is as is, it is true. It's not that this is applicable in only this realm and not in the other realm. So when you are experiencing a dream, you are getting sweat, or you are getting that your heartbeat increases when you see some dangerous thing, right? You wake up and your heartbeat is fast, or you are sweating. So that experience, or even if these physical things are not there, you get up and if you can recollect it, you say, I saw some unpleasant dream. So that experience is there. So your experiences through that are real, right? It's not that it's an illusion. But leaving that aside, let's proceed to the subtle body and the pranas, right? So now what is this subtle body made up of? It is told that this subtle body is made up of the mind, the intellect or the buddhi, manas, intellect, ego, ahankara, chitta or the storage of memories, and 5 organs of action and 5 organs of perception, and the 5 vital forces or the pranas. So before going further, right, here itself it is told, you can see that in the Indian philosophy, we are talking about manas and chitta where the memories are stored, intellect which directs the mind by analyzing the information stored in the chitta. All of these are beyond the mind, beyond the brain. The brain is dead, right? I mean, once the physical body, once you die, the physical body, the brain are gone. But then we are still talking about mind, manas, intellect, chitta, ahankara, right? So basically, we are talking about a manas which is not the brain as per the Western scientists, right? But anyway, we are not trying to prove here, we are trying to understand our stuff, right? We need to understand what we are. The whole purpose of this is we need to understand what we are, right? We cannot understand it completely because we are bound now. Because if you are within the traffic, you don't know how many cars are there in front or behind. But if you are standing over a tall building and watching the traffic, then yeah, you can get a good perception of it, right? So right now we are in the traffic. We are not on the building. So we cannot really get. So we have to go by the pramana, our scriptures. We have to go by inferences. These kinds of things as our acharyas have told us. So now let us look at the aspects of the subtle bodies. I already talked about mind and other things, right? We'll get back to that. Then we are talking about the pranas, right? So let us talk about the prana. There is an aspect of prana or the energy in the physical body as well as in the subtle body. Now I just talked about these electrochemical signals that are going around. That is also a part of the prana in the physical body, from the brain to the other things, right? Similarly, prana is far more than that, right? So in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3.9.26, which I read somewhere online, I read this sentence that prana basically, right, is the main vital force, and it divides itself into 5: prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana. The yogic students will be knowing what these are, but I'll still cover. So Prana is something that is taken in and then it nourishes, it basically provides life, right? And then apana is something through which you excrete or you let go of things. So prana can be the food that you eat in terms of the physical body. It can be the air that you inhale. It can be the perception, things that you perceive. Apana is basically the excretion of sweat, of fecus, of urine, of carbon dioxide, or letting go of negative emotions. Vyana is basically the circulatory thing, so that which supplies oxygen and it circulates over the entire body, and that which supplies nutrients throughout the entire body. Udana is the upward moving force towards the brain or the upward thing, and Samana is the digestive force, right? Or the Vayu that basically helps digestion. Now, these pranas, apanas, all these things, they are termed as vayus, also as forces. Now, what is it, right? Is it just vayu? Is it air? In yoga, we say that prana rides on breath, so it is not really breath, right? But what is vayu, right? In my understanding, vayu means maybe the one that moves. So it can be treated as vayu or air, it can physically, or it can also be treated as a signal that moves, electrical signal. It can also be treated as something more subtler than the signal, some sort of an energy transmission, like tejas, for example, right? You can consider tejas is basically the glow or the fire part of it. So that also, the energy transmission, various modes of energy transmission can also be considered as prana. And these pranas, these five vayus basically, or the energies, flow in subtle channels called as nadis. Nadis are more subtler than nerves, right? So this statement, we'll get back to that, right? So this statement says that the force called prana would go out through the mouth and nostrils if it were not held back by the apana. The force called apana would also depart through the lower orifice if it were not held by the vyana. And all these three forces, prana, apana, vyana, can go out in all directions if they were not fixed by the udana. And all these four forces again rest on the samana. So each vayu is protecting the other vayu from going away, and it's protecting the other vayus from getting dissipated, right? Thus protecting the life within us. So I understood this like this, right? This is my interpretation of this. And I am giving a physical interpretation only. Physical means I am only looking at the aspects of these five forces in terms of their relation or their manifestation at the physical level. So as we know, prana is inhaled in, right? We inhale prana. Now, if there is no downward pull into the lower parts of the body, like a gravitational pull, right? That is basically from the apana region or the mooladhara region. There is a suction, right? That's why the diaphragm moves down and the stomach expands, the belly expands. And this expansion is possible because of the strength in your abdomen, right? Or the lower regions, which are able to suck the thing. So inhalation is possible because of a suction force, that is apana, right? So for example, if there is a deceased person, you cannot ingest food into him, right? If you put food in his mouth, he will vomit it. From the throat it comes out. So similarly, prana couldn't have gone in, whether it is in the form of food, in the form of air, in the form of perception or whatever, right? Unless there is a force of apana or suction, that which basically takes in things, right? So this thus apana is supporting prana. Now apana vayu, if you talk in terms of physical terms, let us take the anus for example, right? So it's a suction force which is going towards gravity, right? So what is preventing that anus to open up, always remain open and let the apana vayu out of it? What is preventing it, right? So here we need to understand that there is a contraction of the mooladhara, moolavandha, or the muscles at that region, which is preventing the vayu to, which is preventing the the apana vayu to escape, right? So Apana Vayu is supporting Prana, but Apana Vayu, who is supporting Apana? Right? This contraction of the muscles. That's how I am interpreting it. Now, how is this contraction of the muscles happening? This is possible through the neural firing of the action response system. The brain is basically giving electrical signals. From the brain, there are electrical signals being transmitted all over the body, right? So until there is a downward pressure due to the fecal matter, the anus does not open up, right? So till then it is held. Who is holding it? This circulating energy or the electrical signals which are being circulated all over the body from the brain is perhaps the Vyana Vayu, right? And this is this Vayu which is telling the muscles to contract, instructions from the brain and keeping them intact. Thus, the Apana Vayu is being supported by the Vyana Vayu. Now again I am talking at the physical level. Then, who is supporting this Vyana Vayu, right? It could have escaped all through, it is circulating all over, right? So here, this Vyana Vayu is being controlled from the brain. It's the brain that's sending the electrical signals. While the signals themselves are due to sodium, potassium ions, etc., the fluids, right? They are electrochemical reactions. Basically, these signals, the to and fro signals, are from the brain. Now, it is the Udana Vayu that is supporting the Vyana Vayu. How? We say that the Udana Vayu moves upwards. Now, what is this upward? What does this mean, move upwards? I am taking it like moving upwards towards the brain, right? So the Udana Vayu is moving upwards and it's controlling the brain activity, the vocal hearing activity, the eyes. Most of the sensory perception except the skin is in the realm of the Udana Vayu. So eyes, ears, nose, tongue are in the upper region controlled by the Udana Vayu. This perception is the cause of the neural activity, right? So basically Udana Vayu is the perceptive force perhaps, right? From the external sensory organs, it is taking things to the brain. So unless, and Vyana Vayu is in the opposite direction, from the brain to the outside, to the organs of action, right? So we can say that Udana Vayu is from the sensory organs to the brain and Vyana Vayu is from the brain to the organs of action. It is the sensory organs that direct the organs of action. The sensory organs tell the mind something, the mind desires for something, and then it acts through the organs of action. So this upward pull towards so in that way Udana is controlling the perception, is controlling the action, which is Vyana. Or in another way we can say that this upward pull towards the brain, or a strong brain, or the strong senses, are the ones that sustain the organs of action, because they are the ones that direct the organs of actions through the brain in between. So if the brain is not properly functional, then the neural activity or the signal movement from the brain towards the anal mouth or any other muscle is not possible, right? So that is how Udana is supporting Vyana. Then, so next is Samana Vayu. So we are saying that all of these Vayus are again being supported by the Samana Vayu. How? So this is my interpretation. In Samana Vayu digests food and provides nutrients, which form ions that maintain the negative charges in the cell, right? The resting potential of the cell. And this resting potential allows an action impulse to happen whenever the neural firing happens. So all of this electrical impulse again is possible through the food, water, air that we take, which is prana, right? It replenishes us. And this prana itself is causing the udana. It is replenishing the brain or the sensory organs. It is causing the circulation, right? And so it is causing the perception, it is causing the circulation, it is causing the excretion, because the food that you take, the waste is taken out, right? So a proper digestion is needed for excretion, a proper digestion is needed for proper perception. It has to support, right? Because you see that that if you stop drinking water, for example, and you're on fast, your sensory perception ceases to exist, right? It goes away. So that is how Samana Vayu is supporting all of these other Vayus. So in the physical terms, so that is how I am interpreting this statement. Now, in the physical terms of the gross body, prana is the intake of food, information that is possible, right? And similarly, excretion is also basically excretion of information and or the excretion of the fecal matter or whatever, right? So and so all of these are being supported indirectly by each other. That's the summary, right? So what we are saying is that Samana Vayu is the assimilation, right? So the circulation is one thing, right? Taking the nutrients to the different areas, or the first is basically, let us talk in terms of the order, right? Prana, you are taking in stuff, information, food or whatever. Then comes the apana, right? You are excreting out what is not needed. But between these two, between intake and this thing, there is a digestion or an assimilation, right? And this assimilation, after this assimilation, right, you are having a perception, and you are having circulation and perception. The assimilation through perception is leading to a change or a continuation of the present perception, right? So it is also told, for example, that the Udana Vayu dictates future lives. So what does that mean, right? So perception is important here, right? The assimilation of Samana Vayu, which is helping the perception, right? Assimilation of what you have taken in, right, is important, right? So basically it is through perception. The digestion of information that you take is Samana, but that information that you are perceiving in, how you digest it, how you store it in with your records, right? It dictates how you react in future, how your karma is built. So that is why Udana Vayu, or perceptive force, in my view, is dictating the future lives. So this is something about the Vayus, right? Now, in the Gayatri Avahana mantra that we do daily in our Sandhya Vandana, we recite this. And the Vayus are described in the same order in this mantra. So basically it says Gayatriya, Gayatri Chandah, Vishwamitra Rishihi, Savita Devata, Agnir Mukham Brahma Shiro, Vishnur Hrudayagam Rudrashika Prithvi Yoni, Pranopana Vyano Dana Samana Prana Shvedavarna Sankhya Nasagotra Gayatri. Right? So Pranopana Vyano Dana Samana Prana. We exactly Gayatri mantra is talking about that its presiding deity, who is basically responsible for providing these vital forces of prana, apana, vyana, udana and samana, right? Now let us next talk about, so we talked about the physical body, right? Now the question that I have is that in the Sukshma Sharira, how are these Vayus? When you say organs of actions of Sukshma Sharira, what does that mean? When you say organs of perceptions of the Sukshma Sharira or the subtle body, what does that mean? So when the physical body goes away, Annamaya Sharira goes away, the Sukshma Sharira is nothing but the one that encompasses the Pranamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, basically the vital force body or the pranic body, or which encompasses the mental body or the mind, which encompasses the Vijnanamaya or the soul, which basically has, I'm sorry, I should say it reverse. The Pranamaya is the outer one, which covers the Manomaya. Manomaya, there is the Vijnanamaya inside it, and the Vijnanamaya is the soul, and then there is Anandamaya. So though we say that these layers are one over the other, it's actually the expanse of these layers is quite the opposite. Basically, the Anandamaya is all almighty, right? All encompassing. The soul, its perception is not limited to a particular place, right? Though it is Anu, it can perceive a lot. Similarly, the mind, through mind you can go anywhere. right? It is more expansive. And then the Pranamaya Kosha is not as expensive as the further inner Kosha. And then the Annamaya Kosha we know is not as expensive as the Pranamaya Kosha, because physical body is just limited to where you are. So though we say that these five things are one inside the other, the expanse of these or the impact of these is in the reverse direction. So anyway, it is told in our scriptures that the five subtle elements, basically everything is made up of the five elements. I haven't read, but in some of the Upanishads, there, I think Prashna Upanishad or something, there is a question that how the five elements, which is ether or space, air, then fire, water and earth, how these five elements created life, right? It's a big question, and then lots of Puranas also have described how the creation happens. We'll not go into that detail, but the summary is that Bhagavan or the Paramatma wills. There's an action in that to create, and so that there is this nature or the material cause. He becomes that which is perhaps associated to the Tamoguna, and then he becomes the instrumental cause of it, and he starts creating. It's just like, for example, if I have to cook food or if I have to make a curry, then me just sitting won't happen, right? So I have to take all the material and then I have to prepare it in a particular way according to the recipe. So there is a will in me to cook, and I cook a dish, right? So that's how. So the five subtle elements, basically they are coming one from the other, right? One gives birth to the other. But they say that these five subtle elements by themselves, they are just objects, right? They are just elements. But when they are associated with activity, which is the Rajoguna, right? Then they create these five vayus. Now what are these gunas? So the mode of goodness, they call it. I mean, these are not great words, but Sattva Guna, then the mode of activity Rajoguna, or the mode of passion, and then the mode of inaction or tamas or the darkness, right? So what are these gunas? Now it is difficult to explain this, right? It's just like saying how does salt taste, right? So gunas, we have to take these as postulates, or we have to take these as axioms, right? These are truths, right? So these are some qualities through which certain things are happening. So the Rajoguna or the activity is causing these elements to mix in certain way to create certain things, like the five vayus or the five pranas, right? Let us talk about the five pranas. Now, whose guna is it that is causing this, right? That will be the next question, but we will not go into those depths, right? This guna has to be with someone, right, to create it, right? It's not in the five elements, right? Perhaps that's my understanding, right? So these five elements are associated with some guna and with the Rajoguna. So there is a will to act, there is a will to mix them, or there is a will to create something from them. So these five elements cause the five pranas. So perhaps in the subtle body that starts with the Pranamaya Kosha, these vayus exist in their subtle form, created through these five elements. So they might control the energy, information intake. So in the subtle body, there is no physical thing, right? There's no physical body. So you don't eat food that you eat, right? I mean, the food that we eat, the earth that we eat, the earth element, we eat more of the earth element, right? And water element or air element. But this is not physical body. So maybe these five pranas that we are talking about, they might be controlling the energy, information intake, which is pranavayu, letting go of the information, apanavayu, circulation of the information all around the subtle body, right? So basically from perception all the way to the mind, to the intellect, to the chitta, there is a transfer of information, right? Maybe that is jnana from one location to the other in the subtle body. And perception through the sense organs of the subtle body, right? Subtle body also can sense it, right? In dreams, as I said, the subtle body is finding, it's looking at different things, it is perceiving things, it is reacting to them, right? So perception of the sense organs of the subtle body, udana, assimilation of that perception or understanding, that is samana, which is stored in the chitta in the form of records, and these records again make us act. So these five vayus are also related with the five elements like this, right? I just told the five elements create these vayus. How, right? So basically, apana vayu is related to earth, right? Downward motion, right? Vyana vayu is, as I said, circulation, right? So it is water. Samana vayu is assimilation or fire, right? Fire basically causes the digestion, right? Digestive fire. Prana vayu is basically related to air we breathe. Udana vayu is upward motion, right? It's like they say it is ether because it is creating sound, right? So sound is basically through your mouth, through your ears, right? So that's how these five vayus are related to these five elements. Now I am only talking, when I gave these examples, I talked again in the physical sense, right? So that we can understand it, because we cannot understand, we only understand three dimensions, we cannot understand fourth dimension, right? So that's why whenever we have to understand things in our current state, we have to take physical examples, right? So that's why I'm trying to relate these physical examples. But now I'm going back to the subtle body. So as I said, these five elements are creating these five pranas. I just told the relationship between these five pranas, right? Now, through the association with the Rajoguna, the guna or the mode which makes one to act, which causes action. So the action, through the action, these are creating these pranas. Now, why do we need this prana layer in the Sukshma Sharira? Why should the prana layer encompass the Manomaya layer in the subtle body, or the mind layer? So, well, as noted above, the subtle body is functional in terms of its perception, its reactions, its storage of records. It is functional in terms of waiting for the next body, and when it gets a next body, physical body, in the womb of a mother and comes out, takes birth, then this subtle body is functioning to develop the physical body through the subtle forces that it has, which is again the prana, right? So thus the gross sense and action organs are generated during the birth, and similarly during death, there is a withdrawal of these senses slowly, right? I cannot see, for example, when I become very old, I cannot sense, I cannot talk. So there is a withdrawal happening, right? Withdrawal force happening, right? So if you see, even this withdrawal force can be treated as apana, right? The withdrawal from the physical body into the subtle body of the forces or the boons that were given to the physical body also perhaps is apana shakti, or the apana power of the subtle body, right? So there are lots of functions that the subtle body is doing. All of this is movement, right? Perception, reaction, storage of records, waiting for the next body, moving around. All of these are nothing but they are basically actions. They are all movements, right? All of this needs energy and force. So this pranamaya kosha is like a container or a layer over the inner layers, right? That allows us to take in information, perceive, that allows for the passage of the information or the energy, for the circulation, for the assimilation from the outside world to the inside, right? Till the soul, from the mind, intellect, chitta to soul. And without this movement, without vayu, what you call as vayu, right? This is not possible. This kind of an exchange is not possible. So that is why prana layer is highly important. Now the other way that we can perceive the prana in the subtle body, I am thinking like this, right? Now we say that there are nadis, right? In yoga we say that the prana flows through the nadis. Now these nadis are not just physical neurons or nerve circuits. They are further subtler than that, right? Because it is told that there is a transmission of information even when you are in the physical body. There is a transmission of information in some subtle form through the mind or the manas. It's not the brain, it's the manas, which is in the manomaya kosha, right? And back. The energy movement through these nadis, right, is causing this information exchange, and this energy movement is nothing but prana. It is also said that when we leave the physical body, right, when we have the physical body, right, when we are in the physical body, then the food that we eat affects the mind. How? Because you are eating physical food, right? It is like you are eating rice or chapati or some veg or non-veg, right? Whatever. Then how is it affecting? Why non-veg is affecting the mind? Why tamasic food is affecting the mind? Because mind is internal. It is not a physical layer, which means that this physical thing that you are consuming is getting converted into some sort of energy or some sort of uh, subtle thing which is being transported till the level of the mind through the nadis by the prana or the vyana. We can say vyana vayu, right? Vyana vayu is circulating, as we discussed. So they are saying that what you are eating also has gunas associated with it, right? It is in the maybe it was prepared by a person in tamoguna, or the food itself is a tamoguna, or food itself is very good shuddha sattva, or it is rajasic in nature. Again, here we are talking about the gunas associated with the five elements, right? What you are eating is made up of the five elements. Yeah, it has the earth element more in it and the water element. But then the gunas that it is associated with it, right? It has a certain characteristic, and the characteristics could be inherent in it. Like for example, meat is bad. It is having tamoguna and rajoguna in it. Onion is having rajoguna in it, let us say, or tamoguna, whatever, right? And a prasad offered to God, a pure vegetarian thing, has sattva in it. And then these gunas are also transmitted. We have stories like if a person who is cooking that food is not in a proper condition, mental condition, then those emotional aspects are transmitted to the food. I will talk about emotional transfers later in this podcast, right? So these gunas associated with the food are somehow being transferred subtly. There is a subtle transfer through the nadis from the physical layer to the mental layer, from the annamaya to the pranamaya to the manomaya. This tells us that the nadis are subtler than the nerves and are a part of the subtle body. When the physical body is gone, the energy transfer or the information transfer through the nadis happen between the pranamaya and the inner koshas. So till the physical body is there, the food that you take is being transmitted in different forms, right? But when the physical body is gone, you can think that these nadis still exist, and this energy transfer is between the pranamaya kosha and the internal koshas. Now, there are these chakras that we talk about in yoga, right, or the energy centers. They are also in the pranamaya kosha or the subtle body. It is from here that the nadis go into the inner layers or to the outer layers, the annamaya layer. So when you have a physical body, these nadis connect from the pranamaya kosha, from the energy centers or chakras. These nadis traverse outside towards the outside to the annamaya kosha. They connect to the annamaya kosha, and they also connect to the inner layers. These chakras are associated with the various parts of the physical body when it is there. When you have a physical body, we say that, for example, Anahata chakra is in the heart. The Manipura chakra is in the solar plexus. Vishuddhi chakra is in the throat, right? So, but when you are a baby, right, these chakras are close to each other because your heart is close to your throat. Your throat is close to your forehead. But as you grow in your physical dimensions, the chakras are adjusting themselves to go and associate it with your physical regions, like the heart and the throat. There is a gap now when you have grown up. So pranamaya kosha, its energy centers and the nadis are expanding to suit the physical body. Or you can say that the subtle body is basically expanding to the needs of the physical body. So when the physical body is gone, we don't know what is the dimension of the pranamaya body, but we can infer with this example that as I grow from a baby into a man, the capabilities of the subtle body or its impact on the physical body is increasing, and similarly later on as we grow old, the impact of the subtle body from the physical body is slowly getting disassociated, right? So it is just basically expanding to suit a baby's body and from a baby's body to an adult body, but it has all that needed stuff. It tells that the subtle body is capable of movement, which is again possible through the prana, vayu, right? We say vayu means don't consider it as physical air. It is the energy of movement. It is the energy of transformation, which is related to fire. All these aspects of the five elements are the energy of circulation, water. All of these energies are there within the subtle body. Otherwise, it will not be able to take over the physical body. It will not be able to occupy the physical body and control the physical body. And that's how we can identify prana in the subtle body. Then another way of interpreting the prana or the energy in the uh, subtle body is perhaps like this. Now we know that prana, we are saying, is everybody you hear, right, says prana is energy. Prana rides on breath. But what is it, right? What is energy? How many kinds of energies do we know? There are very few kinds of energies that we know here, right? Yeah. Like there is a kinetic energy, which in turn is from a potential energy, is related to a potential energy. There is a thermal energy, heat energy. There is a light energy, tejas. There is a mechanical energy, like when I through some physical equipment or something like that, you are, for example, churning a wheel and then it is creating sugarcane juice, right? It is crushing a sugarcane. There is nuclear energy, there is atomic energy. All these are interchangeable, right? And then there is transfer of information through electromagnetic fields, right? So many things. These energies are all that can be perceived, right? Now at a physical level, the intake of prana through the physical food or air nourishes the body. And at a subtle part of this nourishes the mind, as we just discussed. This subtle part is not the physical part, right? It is said that, for example, if you take an example in our scriptures, it is told that devatas or the gods, they have tejas shariras, means bodies of fire or light or tejas, right? Glow. So when we offer oblations in ghee in this fire, right? When we do homas at home or at public places, when we offer the oblations, when the rishis do this, right? It is perhaps basically the ghee is not being directly consumed by the gods. It is say that the tejas of the fire or the heat energy that is coming out of it, that fire, is being consumed by those tejas shariras. Take an example, right? And they get nourished like that and they get satisfied like that. Take an example. We are physical body. Our body is mainly earth and water and air. So we basically are used, we take mainly earthen food, right? More of earth in it, some water in it, right? So similarly, if you can extrapolate, those gods who have fire as their body, they take the fire element or the tejas element for their food, right? Now fire, heat are one of these five elements which form objects, which whether it be our bodies or bodies of gods, right? So there is a transfer of energy which is not purely the physical energies that we know of, right? Through the oblations that we are doing. And it is not just this. Energy is also in terms of emotions, right? For example, we feel energized when we think of our guru, when we think of our mother or father or a well-wisher friend. We say, having this person by my side is like having a great strength. This strength makes us exert the effort even in difficult situations, right? So if energy means to do a work, right? Even though I am ill one day, if I think of, let's say, somebody who is I'm really fond of, then I get that energy automatically, either to perform that activity for them or remembering them, right? So it is told that in the highest form of bhakti, one performs all his activities as activities of service to God. He sees God everywhere. This is out of love you are doing it, right? Now what is this? This is an emotion, right? So there are different levels of energy or communication or information transfer. There are different forms of prana from gross level to the subtle level that sustain the existence itself. Even this emotion is sustaining me today. So this information that is being passed, it can be passed in different ways, right? It can be passed through electromagnetic waves, for example. This information that we are talking about, or this energy transfer. It can be, for example, in sound waves. Sound waves are formed due to collision between air particles in space, right? That is why it is said that sound is created from space. Air is also created from space. Similarly, water waves are due to collisions of water particles. It is the potential and kinetic energy, play of potential and kinetic energy between the water particles that move up and down, right? The particles are not moving, but they are transmitting the energy, as we know, the wave energy. They are all passing energy from one particle to the other, right? These are all visible forms of energy. In these visible forms only we see how the energy is being transmitted. Similarly, heat energy or tejas is the transfer of heat energy between particles. So this should give us an idea how prana, the energy, is flowing, right? What can be its medium of transmission, right? There can be a medium, there might not be a medium, we don't know. When we say nadis, we don't know what they are, but maybe they are some sorts of these physical mediums, because prana itself is a physical thing. As we said, it is created out of the 5 elements. Similarly, they say the mind is also a physical element. They say that mind, intellect, everything are physical, right? From these physical elements, right? Now, then, so we are trying to understand this, right? Now let's try to understand the sense organs, right? So it is told that the subtle body has these 5 sense organs. Now really, what are the sense organs of the physical body? They are eyes, ears, skin, tongue, right? So these are basically your nose, right? These are your sense organs. But really, the subtle body, does it have sense organs? We are saying it's not physical, right? So I don't know what the subtle body is, right? So I'm again assuming, if you take out the physical aspect of it, right, we are talking from the pranamaya kosha onwards. So perhaps we are talking about the subtle sense organs or the capabilities of sensing. For example, we are talking about the tanmatras. So for example, if air has a quality of touch and it is associated with skin. Fire has a quality of form. Fire gives form and that form is visible to eyes. Earth has a quality of smell and that is absorbed by the nose. Space, sound is generated in space and that is audible to ears. And water gives taste and that is felt by the tongue. So these physical sensory organs have the corresponding 5 elements associated with them. And the 5 tanmatras. Tanmatras means the perceptions, which is touch, form, smell, sound and taste. Right. So at the subtle level, we are talking about these capabilities to sense or the aspects of sensing. The subtle body has these aspects of sensing. What does it mean? It can feel that, or it has the capability to touch or to feel the touch. It has the capability to sense a form. It has the capability of smelling. It's not in the physical sense, right? We are talking about it has the capability to of hearing the sound. It has the capability to visualize the taste. So as you know, in the subtle body there is this chitta or the storage of records. The subtle body is able to extract out these records and it is able to experience those records. For example, if there is a record of a beautiful person in that memory, in the chitta, the subtle body can give it a form and experience it, though visualize it, though there is no physical form. That's what we do in dreams, right? Or even when I'm not seeing a person physically, I can close my eyes and think of a person, right? So there is this capability that is associated with these 5 elements. The subtle sense organs we are talking about here are part of this subtle body, and it is told that they are created from again the 5 elements as I described. Air is giving touch, right? Fire is form, right? So the 5 elements again are giving rise to these 5 subtle sense organs or the capabilities to sense by their association with the sattva guna. So sattva guna is perception. That's why they say that if the sattva guna or the mode of goodness is more in a person, then the perception is very clear. The discrimination is clear, and that's how he can control what information goes in, how it is stored, and how it affects his or her karma, right? So the soul, right? When I say he, his and her, don't take it as his and her. Then, so these subtle sense organs of the subtle body, they are referring to the abilities of the respective gross sense organs of the physical body, right? So it is in this context, there is a I will quote an important Yoga Sutra which is one of my favorites. I liked it because it is short and it is very meaningful. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which says Drik Darshana Shaktyor Ekatanata Iva Asmita. So Asmita or ego is nothing but identifying the Darshana Shakti, the capability to perceive, as the one who perceives. So it is basically the capability to perceive is basically in the physical body, like for example through the eyes or ears, or the capability to perceive is through the tanmatras, or it is the subtle sense organs of the physical body, right? There is a capability, but then that capability is not the seer itself, right? The seer is different than it. Yeah, you can consider that that capability is a quality of the soul. The soul, we talk about in our philosophy, we talk that the soul has two kinds of, it is knowledge, it is the knower and the knowledge both, right? So we call there is a dharma bhuta jnana and dharmi bhuta jnana. Dharmi means it is its nature. The nature of the soul is knowledge. Dharma bhuta is basically the nature of the soul. Soul is to acquire and transmit knowledge. That is the other aspect of it, right? So here it is saying that, I mean, if you take this statement at a gross level, it is saying that identification with your physical prowess, physical aspects or your capabilities as you is wrong. That is ego, right? Anyway, so that is another way. So then let's talk about the karmendriyas, right? Now, what are the biggest question I had was, what do you mean by five senses, five organs of action in the subtle body, in the sukshma sharira? Now again we have to perhaps treat. Now I don't have a full answer to it. In fact, you need to understand when I'm speaking so eloquently, you need to understand that these are my thoughts after having read through some information. Some of it might be wrong, but I won't say it is wrong because I did this research and I'm kind of trying to correlate it to my knowledge, but I might not be complete is what I would say, right? Obviously, if I were reading our Vedas and other things, if I were well versed in them, if maybe I could have had better answers to this, right? We lost our education system like that. But anyway, so let's coming back to the karmendriyas of the subtle body. It is said that the subtle body has five karmendriyas, but maybe these are the karmendriyas in their subtle form, right? For example, we can say that there could be actual action organs associated with the subtle body because the subtle body can move, right? We see in dreams it is moving, right? And even otherwise, it says that the subtle body travels from after death, right? It leaves the physical body and then it travels to different planets, different things based on its karma, and it can also attain moksha, right? Liberation. But the point is that it can move, which means it's an action, right? Legs in the physical body cause the movement, hands cause movement, hands can grab things, hands can touch things, right? Tongue can speak, express. The subtle body also can express. The subtle body perhaps can move. So maybe it has physical karmendriyas, but maybe we should take it otherwise. We should say that the subtle concepts that manipulate or dictate the gross organs of action are perhaps the subtle karmendriyas that are associated with the subtle body. It is difficult to understand. As I said, we cannot understand beyond the third dimension, right? So we cannot. One who has experienced it can maybe explain better than me. So for example, with hands what you do, you touch. So to touch is with hands. To move is a capability of the feet. To speak is a capability of the mouth. To excrete is a capability of the excretory organs. To reproduce is a capability of the reproductory organs. So all these actions by the physical are by the physical organs of the gross body. But these physical organs are again governed by their respective five elements, and which is the five elements, and the action in the inert five elements is caused due to the rajas. So basically what I'm saying is that these five elements again through the mode of action or rajoguna, they are creating these capabilities to move, to speak, capability to touch. So when a subtle body enters a physical body during birth, right, Suddenly the baby can swallow milk, right? How? The baby can cry, how? Right? Which means that these capabilities are there, that these capabilities just needed a mouthpiece, an organ, a physical organ to express, right? But the capability to move was there, the capability was to grab was there, right? So for example, if you take a seed of a tree, right, that seed of a tree has the ability to bear fruit in an invisible form already. We don't see it, right? And similarly, Vyanavayu directs the organs of actions based on perception. We already discussed this, right? So Vyanavayu, so there is perception which is Udana, as I said, right? It is towards the mind from the sense organs. And based on the perception, the mind dictates the organs of action. So again, the Vyanavayu part of your subtle body, the Vyana, the Vyana part of the Prana can also be considered as the capability of the organs of action, right? Vyana is what? You can say that it is circulating, right? So one way is basically perception, right? From the Pranamaya Kosha, something is perceived by the subtle body, it is taken to the mind, to the intellect analyzes it, and then it is stored in the analyzed thing is stored in the chitta or the memory, and later on it can be extracted out. Now that is Udana, we said. Vyana is circulation or what? From basically the mind or from the chitta, that memory record is extracted out, and it is processed again by the intellect. The intellect then tells the mind to do something. The mind will then direct that thing outwards, right? So when the mind directs a thing outwards, then it is the organs of action. So basically the direction outwards from the inner layers is Vyana. So the Vyana part of it can be considered as the or the vital force Vyana can be considered as the organ of action. Now it is in movies we show, right, there is a ghost. I mean, if you are to compare it with a subtle body, I don't want to do that, but as an example, right, the ghost has some unfulfilled desires, right? So the mind is telling it the organs of actions or the capabilities of the organs of actions to act in a way to enjoy an object of its desire. So until it has a physical body, it cannot do it. So it basically occupies a physical body and tries to enjoy it. It's told like that, right? There are examples of Parakaya Pravesh and other things in our, which have been done by various people in our this thing, and then also by some of the saints, right? So anyway, that is how perhaps we can interpret the karmendriyas. Now, let us look at the subtle body in another way, right? I've been thinking about it. So let us say that the subtle body can move, right? It cannot speak, but it has the ability to speak if it is provided with a vocal cord. The Vak Shakti, due to the five elements, is still there. The space element is still there with the subtle body. But just that there is an absence of a physical organ called as mouth or vocal cord. It is just like you have the waves, but there is no television to translate those waves and show you the pictures and sound. Right? So for example, the information, let's take it as in our day-to-day computers or digital world example, right? In the digital world, this information that is transmitted across from, right, it's being transmitted in some encoded format or binary format through either wires, which is you call it as the LAN network, or wireless networks, right? So we can say that in the physical body, the information through the nerves is being passed through these electrical signals and all. The perception, the reactions, all of this information is traveling through the wired network of the physical body. So if you take out the physical body, perhaps in the subtle body, all this information is being transmitted as an energy, like a wireless energy through a wireless network. It's a wireless information. Basically, the information is traveling in a wireless way through the prana, is through the energy, right? The information needs a medium to travel. That medium you can say is prana, right? So consider the Wi-Fi of a subtle body as an internal home Wi-Fi, not an external network, because it is limited to the subtle body, right? This experience or this information is limited to the subtle body. It's not like an internet which is connecting everything, right? It is not that. The soul has that capability to perceive everything, or the Almighty has that. But the subtle body or the soul bound in the subtle body has a limited access, right? Basically, it's like a home Wi-Fi. So I have a router in the home. So only in my home, I have the network connectivity. if I go from my bedroom where the router is there to the hall or the kitchen, maybe that signal strength is lower, right? So in that way, we can treat a subtle body like a Wi-Fi intranet, not an internet, that is available only within the realms of that particular home, right? So that is another way to look at this information. So I think I tried to cover all that I wanted to, and in this 1 hour podcast, all the mistakes in this understanding are mine. And uh, okay, that's about it. And if I get more information on these aspects, I try to cover more. Obviously, I couldn't get the answer to how the thumb or the tip of the thumb is connected to the Manipura chakra, how the mudras, because this is the basis of understanding mudras, right? We cannot understand physical body, right? For example, forget pranamaya kosha, right? Annamaya kosha itself we cannot understand. The other day I was trying to understand about the different planes, right? Bhur, Bhuvaswar, Janas, Tapo, Lokas, and all those things. I was trying to understand Meru. I was trying to understand the cosmology defined in Bhagavatam. But then later I realized that I cannot understand what is Jambudvipa, right? I cannot even understand what it is in the current way it is, right? I cannot relate it to how it is defined in scriptures like Ramayana. So we cannot understand our physical plane first, but it is good to put this effort to understand what we are at least, because it is directing us towards that inner reality. And it is also told that while we try to get answers to these, we need to continue our good practices and hearing to elders, because we should not waste time in just these things. That is very important, because they have already researched it and they are telling us something, right? So it is better to follow those things, but it's good to have this inquisitiveness. It is good to spend time in this way also, is what I feel, because I am practicing yoga. I got these questions, this inquisitiveness, right? So I consider it also as a good thing. Okay, thanks a lot. Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Jai Shriman Narayana, Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha.